Welcome back to CoastBoxOffice. In this video we are going to look at the nitty-gritty of actually setting up your seating plans so that you can sell tickets. Up to this point we've looked more at the promotional aspects of setting up the system, but now we're actually going to look at how you actually create plans that you can then sell. Now, remembering that your plans are restricted by your license, and it's simply the number of active plans that you have. You can have any number of venues, any number of events, any number of plans, but it's the number of active seating plans that you have available for sale at any one time that are controlled by your license. So here we have my theatre, which you would have seen we set up in the venues video. And here we can create entry, exits, and seating plans. Now, our entry and exits is really just something that appears on the plan to show people where the exits are when they're actually picking their own seats. The seating plans themselves is very different from other systems. You don't create something and then upload it. You actually create it on the system, and we make it's a basic grid, a grid of 100 by 100 that you can create your seating plan on, and you can move it around, create any kind of variation on your seating plan that you want. So it's created dynamically, and we do that for a number of reasons. Most importantly, that we can actually control the rendering of that seating plan so that it works on any size screen. So I'm going to call this my plan, and it is the seating plan itself that gets used when we sell a ticket. So we might have a seating plan in this case that has a normal capacity of, and again, this capacity is notional in that it's only really used to for us to indicate what's the normal capacity of this plan. The actual capacity, the actual seated capacity, comes down to how many actual seats, if it's a seated plan, are available at any one time. So you might remember when we went back to the theatre itself, it had an advertised capacity. So we can put something in here, we can put our own internal notes, and at this point we can just create the plan, and that's kind of means that we have to manually create the actual seating that's underneath that. But there are some options that allow us to automate this. You can see here we can import a plan, and someone might have actually created a seating plan for their theatre and sent us the file, which is an XML file, and we can literally just load it up into the system. And I might just do that for you just to show you what that is like. Let me just see if I can find my here we go. So I've got the seating plan. Bear with me a second, I'm just going to load it up. So I'm going to load it up here. This is the dining hall at Mingara Recreation Centre, and I'm just going to load it up, and you can see what it's done here. It's created this seating plan was done for a local school that had their end of year formal there, and we can see we have parent seats, we have staff seats, and we have student seats, and we had a stage. So in order to visualize what that actually looks like, we'll go back to the plan and we will just preview it. Right? If we preview it here, we can see these are our tables, right? And it's pretty basic, pretty basic. So that's one way that we can create a plan in the system. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that because we don't actually want to continue with that plan, and we're going to create a new one. So my plan, and we'll put 500. Again, just to guess, you should really know, to be honest with you. And here we can create, we can not create a plan, which won't create any seating. We can create some general non-allocated seating, and this means that we've got a venue and we want to sell 500 tickets, right? And we just click this option and we're done. And it creates a general seating section here called General. We can then change it if we want, and it's basically set for 500 seats and general admission, and that's pretty much it. One section, everyone just fills in. Rather than getting a seating number, you get like an index for, ticket number 1, ticket number 2, right up to ticket number 500, and we can then look at our virtual seating, let me just explain how this works. We've got our seating plan, we've got our seating section, Now, if you've got a very small theatre, you've probably only got one section of seats. When we do general admission, we can have separate sections, but this by default just creates one section called general. And here we have our actual virtual seating, which is our row ID is just SEQ, short for sequence. We can change that. We can give it something like the hash if we want. And it goes up to 500, and it's currently available. So that is 500 seats available in the general section on my plan for my theatre. And that's all we have to do. Now we can sell that. Of course, we need to actually have the plan available. So we'll make that available. You can see it's got the red X here, so it's not actually available. But what we might do is we might actually want to have something more, my seated plan. And this is actual, actual seating. And again, we can create it manually, or we can have the system do it for us. Create allocated seating. And this is very, very basic. Very, very basic, just to basically create a number of seats. What we're going to say is I'm going to have one aisle, right, down the middle, and 10 rows of seats. And we're going to have, let's say, 100, right? 100 seats, and let's just go. All right, have the system create it. So we can see here we've got my seated plan. It's created one section called main, and it's created all of our rows, right, with one aisle in it. We'll come back to this in a sec, but we'll just have a look to see what it actually created for us. And there it is, right? We've got one aisle down the middle. And what we can now do is, there are several options that are controlling these here, but we can then start moving it around to actually have it look like it does in our theatre. And you can see that it's dead easy. Move our rows as we want, indicating the aisle in the middle. And it's starting at A and moving up. Obviously, if we are row 1 is on the other side of the theatre, and sometimes you get that where we go left to right instead of right to left. We can literally just drag this one over and put it over here, and that one over there. It's created it for us, and there we have one on the left and on the right. So you can see that this actually extends down a little bit, but we have this grid 10 by 10, and wherever we place our seats, it will dynamically just move them so that they're all nicely laid out, and we can have a bit of a play around it. We can do angles, we can rotate our seats and just have a play. So that's actually saved. So now if we go back to our main plan here, let's look at some of the attributes that are available to us. So we can have a number of sections, and this is applicable if you actually want to break your seating up into sections. Why you would do that is mainly for pricing, because you can see here that we have, we can put a premium. You might say I want 10% on this seating section, and we can also dictate which is filled first. So we might have one section that, okay, we're not going to apply a premium to it, but we just want to be able to designate it as ineligible for auto seating. So when a person books and the system picks seats for them, it doesn't pick seats in this section. Or we can say this is our best section, this is our next best section, this is our third best section, and so on. And we can start divvying up our seats accordingly. But currently we've got one main section. Let's show the label on the, so we'll just call it main section. So you can see it. And you can see here that we can, this is the manual way of doing it. If you actually know on the grid where you want things to appear, you can pick the horizontal and vertical positions. But you will see that if we save this and go back to our, let's just leave it open another window here. We can actually start to move things around. So if we go back to our section, let's just give that a somewhere, because if it's 0 and 0, it doesn't actually show it on the section itself. Refresh this fella here, and now we can see our section is coming up here, because we might want to label our sections, right, and actually show. So we can move that around. That's the section that rather the label that shows, and this is our best seat A section. What else can we do? We can put some public notes on that section, and those notes will appear up in here when we do it. So let's just put some, this is the best section, and we will not worry about this for the minute, but what we will do is we'll go to imaging, and quite often it's quite popular to pick a view, and you might have seen that when we looked at one of our other venues. So I'm just going to pick I just picked an image there, and we'll go to section again, and we'll see that we have a view like that. That's the view of the stage. And what happens is that when we go to, oops, wrong one, when we have a look at our section here, we see our description and we also see the view. This is really good when we have multiple sections, multiple section headers. We can actually click on the section we want and it starts highlighting. The reason these are all grey is because they're not available. Not available yet, as it says here in the seating key, not actually available. So let's have a look at some of the other options and get through this as best we can. So you really don't have to worry too much about the grid position unless you want to place something specifically. And obviously I can't type to save myself. The status and status, we can say that the section is not available. It's allocated seating or general admission. We can change that on the fly. So you can actually take our entire section out of commission just by doing this. And this is handy if you have a section that you don't generally release early. We can stage the release of sections. We can actually turn them off and turn them on, or we can have a section that is really just a number of seats that is they might be for disabled access or wheelchair access, and we can just make them not available, but we'll make them available for allocated seating. Here we address the cosmetics of the seats. So this is a straight row facing the bottom. Traditionally, when we're looking at a seating like this, the seats are facing the stage, if there is a stage, which is here. They don't have to face that way, but that is traditionally in the system the way it works. So a straight line facing the bottom. And what happens there is that if we actually move it, you'll see that the actual seats still stay facing the bottom of the page. Let's have a look at some of the other options with that. We can say that there's a straight line aligned with the. It's a bit of a pain that goes out whenever we click that, but let's just get past that. And now what happens is you can see these ones here, they have all rotated because we're saying align with the start and end of the row, right? So this is how we would create our rows that are perhaps looking this way. And the reason they're doing that is because of the scaling that we have on the system, which is automatically scaling it, which we can change. It's not a problem to do. But you can see that with that option changed, it changes the way that the seating is actually rendered in the system. An arced rows are more sort of they curve a little bit, and we can actually see a curvature. Can't really see it on these ones here. It sort of works more. You can see this. See, it's facing the front, but it's kind of like arced towards the center. If we have seating that is sort of more around the stage, it puts a little arc on that, and it just does it automatically for you. There's nothing more that you have to do. And you also saw the what the circular tables does with the other one that we imported. We can change the rotation of the seats themselves. We can rotate the entire section if we want around. We can move the section. Seat auto size, we can change to be more a static size. Auto size just tries to make the size of the seat fit within the page that we have. And then also, we don't have any exits. We'll talk about exits in a second. And we have social distance. Now, social distancing is, well, it was a thing. It's not a thing now. But certainly we could add social distancing of 1, and that means there has to be 1 gap between groups bookings. It means people that book together can sit together, but between those bookings there has to be 1 seat between them. So, but you can see it forces seat separation between bookings on different accounts. Okay, so that actually, with that on, that affects the volume of seating because we can't accurately say how many seats are available because it comes down to the number of bookings. So that's only put that on if you really want to put a seat in between bookings in the system. So let's have a quick look at exits. and we'll just create an exit here, very, very basic. We'll call it main door for sake of argument. We can put a description on if we want. Is it accessible? Disabled, which means that it's more accessible to, obviously, like if you've got an upstairs door which has stairs, it's not going to be an accessible entry. We can make it's available for access, and that's it. It's very, very easy to do. Now, these create entry and exits for our venue, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily associated with the plan. So if we go to the section, we can now say that this door is associated with this section. Now, if you only got one section, doesn't matter. But if you've got multiple sections, you might want to indicate which is the most appropriate door for that section. And that will print on the ticket. So that will actually tell people which door to enter to access their section for their seating. So it's actually important to have a think about it. So if we go save section here and we look back at our section and we just refresh this here, we will see that we have a door. We now have a door, and we can move the door to wherever it happens to be. Let's pop it down the front there, and our seating 1 to 5. It's a bit messy, but we are literally just playing around with this at this stage. Our main door is here. So yes, when people come in to cherry pick their seats, they can see where the main door is. But more importantly, when they print their tickets, they can see that they come in through the main door. Or you might have door 1, door 2, door 3, door 4, or whatever you happen to have, and you would label them appropriately for that. So that's literally how doors, and what we can do is we can say a door is there, but it's no access. So there is actually a door, but it's a non-accessible door in that you can't actually use it. You can take it offline for whatever reason. If we do is make it a disabled entry, you'll just see how that affects the actual imagery that we use. And we can see that it shows the little wheelchair person here on the main door, and that just indicates that it's accessible for wheelchair. Again, when people are cherry picking their tickets, they want to know, they want to be able to know where they can get in and out of the auditorium or the section. So this ability to move things around here is only for administrators when you're planning. Obviously, if you're a patron coming to look, you can't drag anything around, and you get more information relative to your booking. We'll look at that later. But that, in a nutshell, is the basic sections and the seating. These rows here are the actual rows that it has created, and literally these are the rows that we are looking at here, each row. So each of these rows is represented by a row entry here, and we can see the information for that. We've got row ID A, and that was automatically created for us. Seat number 1, and there are 5 seats. So we can actually take out an entire row if we want in the system, just by making it not available. The start horizontal vertical and the end horizontal vertical. You can put those in if you like, but it's a lot easier just to go into the editor and just to sort of move things around on the grid. Unless you've got a specific place you want them to actually, you can punch those numbers in. And here is the allocated section. If we create another section, we want to move that row into a section. And the thing is with sections, they don't have to be a physical group cluster of seats. It can be more of a notional section. So you can actually take just one row and just move it into a separate section for, say, pricing or availability or some other reason that you want it to just be sort of notionally separate from the other rows in that section. And what we can do is here we can, if we are creating rows and things ourselves, we can clone rows, and what that does is that just copies it. And if we look here, we should see it's going to start to get a little bit messy, but we do have another. Well, actually, no, we don't, because it's probably, if the system's done its job properly, it's created as not available. It always creates, when it clones stuff, it creates as not available. So if we go back in and we refresh that look, we should see there's our cloned copy. See, let's just put it just down a little bit. It just clones it right on top, and we can move that around. So if we want to create another row that's basically like that row there, we can just copy it. And of course, we would go into this and we would, you know, change the title. But let's just delete that because we don't need it. What reflection does is that creates the same row on the other side of the page. So if we have, let's refresh that to get rid of. What I've actually got here, just so you know, is I've got two monitors. I've got my my grid layout here in one page, and I've actually got the CoastBoxOffice admin here. So I'm just actually kind of looking at two monitors, which is really easy to make it work. But if we look at this 1 to 5, and what I'm going to do is highlight that. I'm just going to reflect it and see what it actually does. Again, it creates a copy, and if we look at what it's done, it will, again, I've fallen into my trap of not enabling it. I keep forgetting that. But that's actually a good thing, that it doesn't immediately just push it out for me. If I go refresh here, we will see that it's created it on the other side. So it's literally taken that row and reflected it across the other side. So if we're creating something that's essentially mirrored across an aisle, we can create one row here, just go reflect, and it'll just copy it across the other side. Quick way of actually creating rows of or clusters of seats in the system. So that is, now I did mention quite a while ago about the status hierarchy. So we have right at the very, very top, obviously, your agency status and whether your agency is available and whether you have a valid subscription, of course. And then under here we have the theatre. Is the actual theatre available? You know, is it online? And if you turn that off, everything under here gets turned off as well. It just flows down. The same thing with the doors. We have status. We can turn them on and off here as to whether they appear in a plan. So even though we have a door here on a section, what we can do is we can see that now we have the main door, but it says no access. So it's basically, we've still got it set up, but when we go to look at our seating plan, as we saw before, our door is here because we're planning, but when we actually see it, when we're a member of the public, it won't show that it actually is available at all in the system. So we have our seating plan availability, and of course, that's why everything's not available, is because it's basically not available. We have our section availability, which we can then control here to say what's actually the status of that, and we have our row availability as well. And what we can then do is dig down a little further. So we might have a row, let's take a look at our row here, which now everything's available because we made our whole plan available. And we might say, let's say A5 here is an accessible seat for wheelchair access that we want to just control by itself. Apologies for dragging on this video, but it has to be done. So under that row, we can go seat modification and we can pick the seat. And we're going to say seat 5, and we're going to say it is wheelchair. That's the name of the modification. And we can change the accessibility to a removable seat. And you can see here, we can go, we can change the status of that particular seat. So if we go, we save that, we go to here, we'll see that it is now, looks like a wheelchair, okay, and has a different color on it. So that's that particular seat. But what we can do even more is we can control that, and we can just take it out. We can make it not available. Obviously we can put some notes in here. And again, we can assign that seat, if we like, to a different section. So we could create a section just called, say, wheelchair seats or removable seating, right? And all we're doing is we're creating that, and all we're doing is we're adding all of our accessible seats to that set. We only have the one section, but we could add all of those accessible seats to that section, and then we can just control it with the section itself. We can say we're just going to take them all off, and because we don't want people to be able to book those seats, and that's the main reason for that. So if we create a new section, we'll just call it wheelchair section here. That's all we're doing. It's got no seats in it, and we go to our section here, our wheelchair seats, and we're going to make that part of the wheelchair section. So now, even though that's available there, it's no longer going to be available as a seat here when people actually book it, because we've taken that section, we've made that section unavailable for actual booking. It's letting us still play with it because we're an administrator, but that is how we do that. And we could also, if we like, go to our seating section and apply a premium. Now, so that's either a % up or a % discount. So you could actually have discounted seating on a section. And you can see that section is ineligible for auto fill, which is exactly what we want, because we don't want people to automatically just, you know, book our seats that are designated for wheelchairs when they're auto booking. So look, it can get a little bit complicated. On the whole, you wouldn't do that, but I just want to show you that the facilities are there to actually deal with these contingencies when if we have to. So even though this 5A is a part of this row, which is in the main section, the wheelchair seat itself is actually a part of a separate section that is in control of it. So there you have it. That is the seating sections, and I hope that made sense to you. If you need to delve into this more, you can certainly shoot us some questions, and we're more than happy to help you set up your venues if you like.